There is a kind of belly fat you cannot grab with your hands. It does not hang softly under the skin. It hides deep inside your abdomen. This is visceral fat. It wraps around your liver, pancreas, and intestines. It sits close to your blood vessels. And it does not behave like passive storage. Visceral fat acts like an endocrine organ. It releases inflammatory proteins into your bloodstream. These molecules slowly interfere with insulin signaling. They increase the risk of diabetes and heart disease. Here is the unsettling part. You can look slim and still carry a dangerous amount of it. Your arms may be thin. Your face may look lean. But your abdomen feels tight and firm from within. Most people believe stubborn belly fat is purely cosmetic. They think it is just about calories and exercise. But visceral fat responds to hormones, inflammation, and stress. Now here is the surprising truth. Visceral fat is dangerous, but it is also metabolically active. When your body senses the right signals, it is often the first to leave. So what really happens when visceral fat begins to let go? What changes inside your hormones, your organs, and your metabolism? Today we will break down that journey step by step. Because when you understand what is happening inside your body, fat loss stops being a mystery and becomes biology. The moment visceral fat begins to decrease, the first change is hormonal. This shift happens quietly before you see anything in the mirror. Visceral fat is not an active tissue. It constantly releases inflammatory signals into the bloodstream. These signals interfere with insulin receptor function. They keep your body in a subtle state of metabolic stress. When you create a consistent caloric deficit or increase energy demand, insulin levels begin to fall. Insulin is the primary hormone that promotes fat storage. When it remains elevated, lipolysis is suppressed. As insulin declines, hormone-sensitive lipase becomes more active. Stored triglycerides inside visceral fat cells begin to break down. Free fatty acids are released into circulation. At the same time, another hormone begins to rise. Adiponectin increases as visceral fat shrinks. Adiponectin improves insulin sensitivity in muscle tissue. It activates pathways that enhance fatty acid oxidation. Inflammation gradually decreases. Communication between the brain and fat tissue improves. Many people notice clearer thinking and steadier mood early on. The scale may not change dramatically at first. But inside your body, the hormonal environment is shifting. Storage mode slowly gives way to release mode. As visceral fat begins to shrink, physical pressure inside the abdomen decreases. This change is mechanical as well as hormonal. Visceral fat surrounds the liver closely. It drains fatty acids directly into the portal vein. This constant overflow contributes to fatty liver development. When visceral fat declines, hepatic fat content often drops first. Liver enzyme levels begin to normalize. Cholesterol processing becomes more efficient. Detoxification pathways regain capacity. You may not feel this immediately, but your blood markers begin to reflect the shift. The heart also benefits from this release. Reduced abdominal pressure lowers resistance in nearby vessels. Blood pressure can begin to decline within weeks. The lungs experience relief as well. Less fat pressing against the diaphragm allows deeper breathing. Tidal volume improves without conscious effort. Many people notice better stamina before visible fat loss. Climbing stairs feels easier. Breathing feels less restricted. This is not imagination. It is organ decompression and improved circulation. When visceral fat lets go, your internal systems regain space to function properly. The change is structural, not just cosmetic. A common question follows every weight loss journey. Where does the fat actually go? It does not melt into nothing. It does not turn into muscle. Visceral fat is stored as triglycerides inside fat cells. When lipolysis is activated, these triglycerides are broken down. Hormone-sensitive lipase splits them into glycerol and free fatty acids. The fatty acids enter the bloodstream. They travel to tissues with high energy demand. Muscle cells and the liver take them in. Inside the mitochondria, beta oxidation begins. Fatty acids are converted into acetyl coenzyme A. This enters the Krebs cycle to generate cellular energy. AP is produced to power movement and metabolism. The byproducts of this process are carbon dioxide and water. Most of the fat you lose leaves through your lungs. You exhale it as carbon dioxide with every breath. The remaining portion exits as water through urine and sweat. This means fat loss is a respiratory process. Every deep breath during exercise supports this transformation. When visceral fat begins to let go, your body is not destroying tissue randomly. It is converting stored energy into usable fuel. The disappearance is not magic. It is biochemistry working exactly as designed. As visceral fat decreases, deeper metabolic changes begin to unfold. These changes affect how your body handles energy every day. High visceral fat is strongly linked to insulin resistance. Inflammatory molecules interfere with insulin receptor signaling. Glucose remains elevated longer in the bloodstream. When visceral fat shrinks, inflammation declines gradually. Insulin receptors begin functioning more efficiently. Glucose transport into muscle cells improves. Blood sugar becomes more stable throughout the day. Energy crashes become less frequent. Cravings driven by rapid glucose fluctuations begin to fade. Another important shift involves leptin. Leptin is the hormone that signals fullness to the brain. With excessive visceral fat, leptin signaling becomes impaired. The brain does not properly register satiety. As fat mass decreases and inflammation falls, hypothalamic sensitivity to leptin improves. You feel satisfied with smaller portions. This is when fat loss feels less like a battle. Hunger becomes predictable instead of chaotic. Your relationship with food begins to stabilize. The body is not only losing fat, it is recalibrating its hormonal feedback systems. When visceral fat lets go, your metabolism does not simply shrink. It reorganizes toward balance and efficiency. Many people assume all belly fat is equally stubborn, but visceral fat behaves differently from subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat cells contain more receptors for catecholamines. These are hormones such as adrenaline and noradrenaline. When released during intense effort, they stimulate lipolysis. High-intensity interval training increases catecholamine levels rapidly. It also stimulates growth hormone release. Growth hormone supports fat mobilization and metabolic repair. Because visceral fat is metabolically active, it responds quickly to these signals. This is why it often decreases before softer surface fat. Nutrition plays a critical role as well. Lowering refined sugar intake reduces chronic insulin elevation. Stable insulin levels allow sustained fat oxidation between meals. Sleep is equally important. Chronic cortisol elevation promotes central fat storage. Consistent sleep restores circadian hormone balance. When sleep improves, cortisol rhythms normalize. Morning energy feels more stable. Late-night cravings decrease naturally. The strategy is not extreme restriction. It is coordinated signaling. Intense movement mobilizes fat. Daily walking oxidizes it steadily. Protein stabilizes appetite. Sleep protects hormonal balance. When these elements align, visceral fat receives a clear biological message. It is no longer needed as protection. And when the body feels safe and stable, it begins to release what it once stored for survival. When visceral fat begins to let go, the change is deeper than appearance. It is a systemic shift towards stability. Inflammatory signaling declines quietly. Insulin sensitivity improves gradually. Blood pressure often trends downward within weeks. Your liver processes nutrients more efficiently. Your muscles respond better to glucose. Your brain receives clearer satiety signals. This is not cosmetic fat loss. This is metabolic recalibration. However, safety always matters. If you have diabetes, kidney disease, gout, thyroid dysfunction, or advanced liver conditions, consult a qualified physician before major dietary or exercise changes. Those using insulin or corticosteroids require medical supervision. The goal is not rapid weight loss. The goal is restoring hormonal balance. Your body is not stubborn. It is protective. When the internal environment becomes stable and safe, it releases what it no longer needs. If you want to keep understanding how hormones and cellular pathways shape your health from the inside out, subscribe to What Science Reveals. Because once you understand the mechanism, health stops being guesswork and becomes intention.